November 29th, 2006, Ridgeland, Mississippi. It's just past 8:30 p.m. in this tranquil suburb of Jackson. In her house on Old Square Court, 37-year-old Sabrina Coleman is settling in for the night when she's startled by an unusual noise.
She just hears this horrendous pounding on her front door. She thought somebody was actually trying to break in the front door of her house. She realizes that it's her neighbor, Keon, is standing at the door.
Sabrina phones emergency responders. Within minutes, Ridgeland police arrive on the scene. In the garage of Keon's house, they make a horrifying discovery.
The carport door is open. They see Keon Pittman there in the garage next to the body of Avis Banks.
27-year-old Avis Banks is Keon Pittman's fiancée. She's lying in a pool of blood. After ushering Keon away from her body, police check Avis's vital signs, but it's clear there's no saving her.
She was savagely attacked.
Gunshot to the thigh, gunshot to her buttocks area. She had a gunshot into her chest cavity, and then there was a lethal gunshot wound behind her left ear.
But the gunshot wounds aren't the only injuries Avis has suffered.
Her neck had been slashed. She had been stabbed.
She had a total of 4 stab wounds.
It's a gruesome scene, made even more tragic by what a devastated Keon Pittman tells Detective Frank Dillard.
We were informed that she was at least 5 months pregnant.
You wonder who in the world would do something like this.
Especially to someone as beloved as Avis. The middle of 3 daughters, Avis was raised in a devout Christian household in Vicksburg, Mississippi.
She did girly things, but mainly she would go to school, come home, do homework, read the Bible, and go to bed.
She was a sweet, loving, kind person.
Avis's parents were of modest means, but they had high hopes for her.
She grew up with 2 great parents, a blue-collar family. Her family was especially proud of her. She was the first member of her family to go into complete college.
She had gotten her degree, with the deal of early childhood education. Her goal was to open up her own daycare center.
Avis was passionate about being a preschool teacher, but she also had big dreams of having a family of her own.
She wanted a family. She wanted a house full of kids.
She wasn't the go out and party type girl. It was family first with Avis.
Which explains why Avis was instantly drawn to Keon Pittman. The two initially met at a fitness club.
He approached her and, asked her her name. He did mention the fact that she was attractive. She kind of blushed and giggled. They talked for a little while and they exchanged numbers. I think what attracted Avis to Keon was his charm.
Keon also shared Avis's passion for educating children. He taught middle school science and coached basketball.
Once we found out Avis was a teacher, I was like, okay, could be a little match.
After just a few weeks of dating, Avis felt the time was right to introduce Keon to her parents. He definitely made a good first impression.
Avis's parents liked Keon because he seemed to take good care of their daughter.
A new house, pending nuptials, a baby on the way. Avis Banks and Keon Pittman are looking forward to spending the rest of their lives together.
Avis was very happy with Keon. Avis was happy with the way the relationship was progressing.
Avis loved that boy.
But this fairy tale romance came crashing down the night of November 29th, 2006. Avis lies dead on the cold floor of her garage. Her body is riddled with bullets. She's also been stabbed repeatedly, and her throat has been slashed. And as for Keon, he's beside himself with grief. As they survey the scene, investigators are struck by the location of Avis's body.
Avis's body was laying on the ground next to the front tire, laying on her back. It looked like she had just gotten out of her car, was approaching the door of the residence when the suspect opened up the door and surprised her.
Could Avis Avis's death be the byproduct of a botched robbery? Judging from the scene investigators encountered inside the house, that appears to be the case.
The residence appears to have been ransacked.
Electronics have been turned over, and dressers have been emptied out.
It looked like maybe this was, in fact, a burglary that may have been interrupted by Avis coming home.
Keon ran next door and urged Sabrina Coleman to get help.
Avis has been shot. Call 911, please.
Keon's story seems genuine, but investigators still need him to come down to the station and give a formal statement.
He was brought to the police station to be interviewed. Was mainly just to get a good written statement from him to lay out some basis for his timeline, where he was, where Avis was, what was going on in her life at that time.
But in speaking with Keon, investigators are struck by a couple of odd details.
Someone did mention, why didn't you just use your own cell phone? He said he never thought about that, but he just ran to the neighbor's house.
As they ask these questions, the detectives notice that Keon's demeanor begins to change. He now seems more agitated than grief-stricken.
Tell me what's going on.
He's not showing the behavior of a person who has just lost a loved one. He was constantly on his cell phone. They want me to use the bathroom, or I can't do this. He was constantly on his cell phone. They want me to use the bathroom, or I can't do this. I can't do that. Finally, I reminded him, hey, you have a dead fiance and your unborn child is in your stomach and they're dead.
I don't know nothing, man. You going out? You the one in here asking me these questions, man. I don't know nothing.
Keon's peculiar behavior prompts detectives to slide a Miranda warning in front of him. Keon refuses to sign it and accuses the police of trying to pin the murder on him.
I'll never sign that because you can easily go back and write your charges. You have charge me. That's the biggest one. I really don't like the situation, I'd rather have a lawyer or someone.
He wanted to talk to a lawyer immediately.
Could nice guy Keon Pittman have something to do with his fiance's murder? It hadn't appeared that way at first, but now investigators are having second thoughts.
When Keon reached out to his attorney, it kind of struck us as odd. It kind of made us change our focus a little bit to maybe dig into him a little bit more to see what he was about.
But just as they begin to wonder if Keon Pittman might be involved in his fiance's death,
I don't know nothing, man.
a new suspect emerges. One who casts the investigation in an entirely different light. Hours have passed since mother-to-be Avis Banks was brutally gunned down in the garage of the home in Ridgeland, Mississippi, that she shares with the love of her life and husband-to-be Keon Pittman.
My first emotion was, who would do this? Why would you kill a pregnant?
I said, who would shoot Avis? Everybody love Avis. Avis don't bother nobody.
Police initially suspect a robbery gone awry. But after exhibiting strange behavior during his formal statement, Avis's fiancé, unassuming school teacher Keon Pittman, has become the focus of the investigation. Detectives obtain a copy of Keon's cell phone records, wondering if they might place him at home at the time of the crime, rather than wrapping up basketball practice at Chastain Middle School.
We're able to get locations that his cell phone was during various times he was making telephone calls.
Keon's phone records confirm his original story, that he was at the school at the time of the crime. A number of eyewitness accounts further solidify this alibi.
There were some folks who saying that he was there at school at the gym between 5:45 and 6 o'clock when Avis was killed. It was a pretty solid alibi from the police point of view.
However, Keon's cell phone records reveal a side of him no one knew existed.
Through his cell phone records, we were able to see that there was several women that he was involved in.
It's clear from the text messages that these relationships weren't just innocent flirtations. Some of them seem like full-blown affairs.
Keon is a womanizer. That's what it boils down to.
Keon's cell phone records also make it clear Avis knew about her fiancé's extracurricular activities.
There was a text message that was discovered on his phone that was from Avis, to where she was questioning his commitment to the relationship. We felt like maybe she had discovered that there were other women involved in his life.
But none of her immediate family can fathom the notion that Keon was unfaithful.
There was love there between Avis and Keon. He loved Avis and Avis loved him.
They were in love. They wanted to raise a family together.
He was a college graduate, a hard worker. He looks like somebody who would be a great dad and a great husband and supportive of his family.
Keon's fellow teachers say the same thing.
Keon Pittman is described as a well-liked teacher down there. He gets along well with everybody.
Lieutenant Neal and Detective Dillard decide to speak with Keon's co-workers at his other place of business, on the Border Bar and Grill. Perhaps they've noticed Keon paying special attention to some of his female customers. Keon's fellow bartenders can recall only one.
Well, there's one that sees him a lot.
A woman who comes in nearly every night Keon works. Her name is Carla Hughes. So how did Keon come to know Carla Hughes? The answer comes as a surprise to investigators.
They think that they work together at Chestnut Middle School.
The name Carla Hughes didn't come up in detectives' initial conversation with Keon's fellow teachers.
Anything you let me know on that one.
But a little digging reveals there's a 6th grade teacher at the school by that name. And like Keon, she's new to the staff.
Okay, guys, remember to be at homework on Thursday.
She moved to Jackson around July of 2006 to become a teacher at Chastain Middle School. Carla was regarded as a very professional teacher. Super smart, just helpful, caring, dedicated.
Carla certainly doesn't sound like the type to be involved with a man who's engaged to another woman. Just in case, detectives decide to pay a visit to the school's principal.
Tell us a little bit about how long you've been here.
The plan is to see if the principal has heard rumors of an alleged affair between Keon and Carla. But before they can ask that question, investigators are interrupted by a surprise visitor.
While I'm talking to the principal, lo and behold, Carla comes in, hysterical. She's crying.
Where's Keon? Is he okay? What happened to him?
Unprompted, Carla announces she's beside herself about the death of Keon's wife and unborn child. But her reaction seems a bit too dramatic.
I found that to be highly unusual.
Detectives ask Carla to accompany them to the station for a formal interview.
If you'll let me finish up here, I'd love to talk.
Carla agrees. Sitting across from Carla in the interrogation room, detectives can see why a man, even one who's spoken for, would be attracted to her.
She was very outgoing, very attractive girl, kind of athletic, but very attractive. She would be one of the ladies you would notice.
Carla Hughes is a beautiful woman. She appears to have it all.
Raised in Greenville, Mississippi, Carla is the epitome of an all-American girl.
She was involved in band, cheering, tennis, soccer, student body organization. She was Miss Washington County Junior Miss, Miss Rainbow Team. After high school, she went to University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg. She graduated with honors.
But if Carla Hughes is the all-American, put-together woman everybody claims she is, why would she even consider having an affair with a man whose fiancée is pregnant? And if the suspicions are true, and Carla and Keon are sleeping together, what does their relationship have to do with the murder of Avis Banks?
She may know things that can get us to talk to him more. Then we can probably extract information from her.
We were questioning her about her relationship with Keon.
How close would you say that you are?
I mean, we're just friends and we work together.
She was saying that her and Keon was just friends, no romantic relationship.
When pressed by detectives, Carla admits that she often visits Keon at work. These revelations, coupled with statements given by Keon's co-workers at On the Border, convince detectives that Carla and Keon are more than just friends. And they press Carla to admit it.
Yes.
According to Carla, the relationship started innocently enough, just two young teachers trying to fit in at a new school.
He was kind of taking her in, showing her the ropes of that new job.
Though Carla claims it didn't take long for that friendship to turn into something else.
They started sending notes via students. Keon just paid her so much attention. That really is what kind of hooked her in. Keon and Carla's relationship heats up really quickly. I believe like the second time he came over, they wound up having sex.
Pretty soon, Carla and Keon are hooking up at every possible opportunity.
They're meeting up after school. She's going to the restaurant where he bartends.
Detectives inform Avis's family of Keon's infidelity. Needless to say, they're floored.
Everything that I thought about him changed. And the only thing I could think of was, why would you waste a perfect relationship to go out and do this?
Keon Pittman is a snake in the grass.
But how does Keon's alleged infidelity factor into the murder of his fiancée? With no further questions, detectives tell Carla Hughes she's free to go. But within hours of doing so, a surprise phone call comes in and sends the investigation in a new direction. A direction that will ultimately lay bare the hidden desires
And all of a sudden, you bottom out.
I think Carla snapped. I think she was jealous. I think she fell head over heels for this guy. So much so that she went crazy.
Don't try to make me the bad guy.
What detectives haven't figured out is whether or not Keon Pittman conspired with Carla to carry out the attack on his fiancée.
But we still feel like he may have been involved with this and knows something.
It's under this dark cloud of uncertainty that the state of Mississippi versus Carla Hughes for the murder of Avis Banks and her unborn child begins. In his opening statement, prosecutor Michael Guest lays out their version of how the crime unfolded.
This defendant had the motive and the means and the opportunity to commit this crime.
According to Guest, it starts at 5:40 p.m. Carla parks her car 100 yards away from Keon and Avis's house. Armed with her cousin's hunting knife and his .38 special, Carla then sneaks to the back of the residence.
She gained entry into the house by, kicking on a back door.
She staged the house to look like someone had ransacked it and tried to come in and burglarize the home.
Once Carla had set the scene to look like a robbery, she positions herself just inside the door to the garage.
She laid in wait outside that entrance door into the garage until she knew that Avis was getting out of her car.
That's when Carla started firing the gun.
Carla shoots Avis 4 times. Then Carla takes a knife to her victim.
After Avis was dead, she stabbed her and slashed her neck.
Her being a female and doing that to another female was a very big shot.
After laying out their theory about how the crime unfolded, the state introduces the evidence they've collected against Carla. The murder weapon, the shoe print, and the cell phone records that place her at the crime scene.
We have a significant amount of circumstantial evidence showing that Carla Hughes committed this crime.
As for motive, prosecutor Guest claims that's pretty straightforward. Carla thought she, not Avis, was the one who deserved to be with Keon forever.
Carla Hughes wanted what Avis Banks had, and that was Keon Pittman.
Next, it's the defense's turn, and in their opening statement, Carla's attorney, Johnny Walls, makes a shocking assertion.
The whole defense strategy is that Keon Pittman murdered Avis Banks and framed Carla.
To support their claim, the defense points out that Keon had shoes with a similar trait to Carla, and that in the days leading up to the murder, he had encouraged Carla to obtain a handgun.
He was the one that had suggested that she might need to have a gun or something. He knew about her shoes. He was just in a position to frame her.
As for Keon's possible motive, the defense claims Keon wanted Avis gone so he could maintain his playboy lifestyle.
Although he would have lost a lot by Avis being murdered, he would also have gained a lot by Avis not being around anymore.
As for Keon's alibi that he was coaching basketball practice at the time of the murder, Carla's defense asserts that there was a 30-minute period where his assistant coach ran practice for him.
Keon had an opportunity to lead basketball practice. He had time to commit the crime.
It's an argument that makes for high courtroom drama. But is it enough to get Carla off the hook? Before the jury can answer that question, prosecutors call a surprise witness. A man whose testimony will change the entire dynamic of the case. A man named Keon Pittman. The trial against Carla Hughes for the murder of expected mother Avis Banks has been nothing short of riveting. The prosecutor began by laying out a mountain of evidence linking Carla to the crime. But the defense countered that Keon Pittman was the killer and that he framed Carla for the crime, which leaves prosecutor Michael Guest with only one option. On October 6th, 2009, he calls Keon to the stand to tell his version of the truth.
We're worried because we know that the defense is going to make him out to be the murderer. But we also know he's the only person that can set the entire scene for the jury.
But no sooner had he taken the stand than Keon breaks down. Or at least tries to.
He's trying to cry. He's not really crying.
The first thing that went through my mind was, no tears are falling from your eyes loud.
Keon's tears may seem like bad acting to some, but the story of his affair with Carla Hughes plays like a red-hot romance novel.
What did you think was going on? What did you think was happening?
A sexual adventure.
According to Keon, the affair was hot and heavy from the get-go, but soon Carla wanted more from him than just sex.
She started asking me about Amos and, I guess, me leaving her and different things, and I maintained that would never happen. I would never leave.
According to Keon, when Carla realized he wasn't going to leave Avis, she became obsessed with him, texting and calling him repeatedly. Carla even faked being pregnant in order to get him to pay attention to her. Keon didn't take the bait.
He tells her, if you come to my house, I'm calling the police.
2 weeks later, Avis is dead. Keon's testimony is powerful, but Carla's defense counters with a withering cross-examination.
I was hoping that he would implicate himself.
Was there anything that stopped you from standing at that door waiting for her to come in?
There's nothing to stop me, but that's not my idea.
And you did that, didn't you?
No, I did not. No, I did not.
Throughout the testimony, Keon, continued to maintain that he did not kill Avis.
With Keon's riveting turn on the stand complete, both sides rest. But whose story will the jury believe? Keon's or Carla's? Just 8 hours later, they return with their verdict.
Everyone goes back in the courtroom. The jury walks in, and several of them have been crying.
None of us really know what way the jury's leaning.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Carla Hughes, guilty of capital murder as charged.
Avis's family is overjoyed by the verdict.
The only thing I could think of was, thank God.
When the verdict came back and they said Carla was guilty, God is good.
Be sentenced to a term of life imprisonment without parole in the custody of the Mississippi Department of Corrections.
She will live the rest of her natural life in custody. And so it is a death sentence in a way.
As Carla is escorted out of the courtroom and off to prison, she grows increasingly hysterical. Although it's clear her obsession with Keon Pittman led to the murder of Avis Banks, Avis's family, like so many others familiar with the case, isn't sure justice has been completely served.
Keon Pittman is a liar and a betrayer.
He didn't want to have to be tied down and be a husband and be a father and stay in the home with his family. He wanted to be out and be free to be with whoever he wanted to be with. I think most people believe he got away with murder.
There's absolutely no doubt in our mind that Keon Pittman needs to pay a price for something in this crime.
Either way, those closest to the case can't help but wonder, What would have become of Avis Banks, the gentle soul, the beloved teacher, the mother-to-be, had she not been collateral damage in Keon and Carla's torrid, some might say, fatal attraction?
There was no winners in this case. Avis is dead. She never got a chance to live that dream she wanted, raising that child. And Carla Hughes, she's in a prison. They both lost.